well to further this investigation. The community has been absolutely terrific as it comes to reporting information that they have, things they may have witnessed, things they may have seen, turning over video that has really helped us further the investigation and aid investigators. One point I just want to clarify is Robert Crimo III, he's 21. He'll be 22 in September of this year, and he's a resident of Highwood. So throughout the past 24 hours, investigators have spoken with numerous witnesses, some of the survivors. They've had the opportunity to review numerous video clips, both from cell phone video recordings and fixed cameras in the area, and they've conducted a number of other follow-up investigations. And based on where we're at this point in the investigation, and some of this is still preliminary, so is subject to change as we keep moving forward, but we do believe Crimo pre-planned this attack for several weeks. He brought a high-powered rifle to this parade. He accessed the roof of a business via a fire escape ladder and began opening fire on the innocent Independence Day celebration goers. The rifle was purchased in Illinois, and the information we have thus far is that it appears to have been purchased legally by Crimo. During the attack, Crimo was dressed in women's clothing, and investigators do believe he did this to conceal his facial tattoos and his identity and help him during the escape with the other people who were fleeing the chaos. During the attack, we believe that Crimo fired more than 70 rounds from this rifle into the crowd of innocent people. Following the attack, Crimo exited the roof, he dropped his rifle, and he blended in with the crowd, and he escaped. He walked to his mother's home, who lived in the area, and he blended right in with everybody else as they were running around, almost as he was an innocent spectator as well. He borrowed his mother's vehicle. We issued an alert yesterday afternoon. Chief Jogman provided the vehicle information and Crimo's information. We're very thankful that an alert member of the community saw Crimo's vehicle traveling southbound on Route 41, dialed 911, an alert North Chicago police officer spotted the vehicle, waited for additional backup units to arrive, conducted a traffic stop, and they were able to safely apprehend Crimo with no injuries to the officers. Inside the vehicle, there was a second rifle located. Indications is that was purchased by Crimo as well. Thus far, over 30 people were injured during the attack, and this does not include the 6 who lost their lives. Right now, Crimo remains in custody at this time.
And 30 injured.
There are no indications that there was anybody else involved in this attack. By all indications, it appears Crimo was acting by himself. The Lake County State's Attorney's Office has been with us from the ground level. They're with us this morning. They were with us through the night. We continue to review the information. Investigators are still developing leads and very critical information. Once we're at a point where we're ready to review all of that information for charges, we will sit down with the state's attorney and review for criminal charges. I'm going to turn this over to the mayor, and then I'll be back up to answer questions. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Today is a day of grieving together, a day to pause, a day to remember those who left us, those who were injured, and for strength for our community. Several vigil and prayer services are taking place today, both inside and beyond Highland Park. They are as follows. The Community Church of Lake Bluff, 117 East Scranton Avenue, Lake Bluff, will hold a prayer service today at noon. The service will include prayer and music at Christ Church on the corner of Route 60 and Waukegan Avenue in Lake Forest. Trinity Grace Church and Christ Church has organized a community prayer gathering at 3 p.m. at Trinity Grace Church, 1506 Half-Day Road, Highland Park. Everyone is welcome. Highland Park Presbyterian Church, Trinity Episcopal, and other area faith leaders will hold an ecumenical community prayer vigil today at 7 p.m. at the Highland Park Presbyterian Church, 330 Laurel Avenue, Highland Park. All are welcome. Today, Highland Park High School, located at 433 Vine Avenue, in conjunction with community partners, is hosting crisis counseling until 2 p.m. and is open to everyone. No appointments are necessary. Additionally, a family assistance center will open tomorrow, July 6th at noon, to provide support services and crisis assistance to those who were directly impacted at the parade. The location and hours of operations are pending. We'll get that information to the community as soon as we have it. Please go to the city website for more information. The Highland Park Police Department, the American Red Cross, and the FBI Victim Services Response Team are assisting with additional partners. The teams will engage with victims and families to assess their immediate needs and provide crisis intervention and other forms of emergency assistance. Anyone who is a victim of the incident and is in need of support can call 800-CALL-FBI. I know what a generous community we are a part of. We are overwhelmed with the amount of support offered not only from those in Highland Park, but the surrounding region and throughout the nation. Thank you. For those who are looking to donate to victims and in support of the community, we ask that you be mindful of potential scams on GoFundMe and other fundraising avenues. This afternoon, we'll share additional information on the city's website regarding how to donate to the victims, survivors, and those who support the community. For all who have reached out with offers of equipment, food, and professional services, we thank you. Thank you all for coming out today. I'll now turn the mic back to Deputy Chief Cavelli.
Thanks. Any questions? At this point, we have not developed a motive from him. Investigators are very much furthering the investigation. They have been in discussions with him. I don't have anything to say about motivation thus far because it hasn't been provided.
Sir, we've seen disturbing videos online. One side this.
The question was, there's disturbing videos online that have been seen. We are reviewing those. Those are going to be a part of any investigation efforts by our task force investigators, Highland Park Police. We'll look at them and we'll see what they reveal.
Give us an idea where in Illinois did he purchase the weapons, and also when he went to his mother's house, did he tell her what he had done, or was she able?
The question was, where did he purchase the weapons, and did he tell his mother what he had done? He purchased the weapons locally, within the region, so the Chicagoland area. When he went to his mother's, we have no indication that he provided any information to her.
Can you give us an idea how many weapons did he purchase and when what?
So he was in possession of the firearm the day of, the rifle. He was in possession of another rifle in his vehicle when he was pulled over by police. He also had other firearms that were recovered from a residence that he was living in Highwood.
Chris Wall in his name?
They were in his name.
And all legally purchased?
They were legally purchased.
Chris, I level up the guys, right? So how did you guys identify him at this point? I mean, clearly there was a lot of planning. Do you have an idea of when he placed himself on the roof? Like, is there a timeline?
So we are working on the timeline, and we don't want to come out with inaccurate information on timing. One of the asks that we have is members of the community, if you have any video of this individual that is walking toward the parade, at the parade, potentially on the roof or exiting, to please call 1-800-CALL-FBI. As far as the disguise went, he wore that in an attempt to conceal himself.
Do you have pictures of that you can offer? I mean, what did he look like?
Potentially, I'll look into that and I'll have to get back to you.
Considering the extensive digital trail, the disturbing videos, you're not a huge garner. What's he known to law enforcement beforehand, and if not, why not?
I can't get into that right now. There have been some law enforcement contacts, nothing of a violent nature. I can't get into the specifics of the context of that.
And how many rifles are calling to NBC are reporting that he purchased multiple weapons? Can you give us any details as to the weapons and how many he may have been in possession of?
At this time, I know of the 2 rifles, and I know that there were potentially pistols that he had owned as well.
Chris,
Sir. I'm not going to go into what he may or may not have said. The investigation is still moving forward. I'll provide that information later on.
Can you break down?
Shooting appears to be completely random.
Is it possible he chose the community because of the high population of Jewish people? I know people are concerned that it was an anti-Semitic attack.
We have no information to suggest at this point it was racially motivated by religion or any other protected status.
Chris, all the videos that appeared on...
I believe still in place is an assault rifle ban in Highland Park, is that correct?
Yeah, I don't have information on that right now, but we will get back to you on specifics.
Chris, all the videos of Primo prior to this, did anyone ever call Highland Park Police or tip off authorities that these were online?
No, we were not made aware of these videos.
Chris, I think you might identify them as surveillance video or tracing the crime.
So investigators did a really good job. The ATF was phenomenal yesterday. They expedited a trace of the firearm. That was a major investigative lead for us. In addition to that, the witness statements, the videos that we obtained from people that turned them in, and the businesses, they all helped us tremendously.
Can you break down the number of injuries, not deceased, and can you also further break down how many of those were gunshot victims and how many of the injured were not subject?
The information I have right now is that all of those that were either transported to the hospital or self-drove themselves to the hospital were injured by gunfire. So over 30 individuals that were injured by the gunfire, and they went to the 3 hospitals we mentioned yesterday.
Chris, if he was dressed as a woman, how were you able to identify so early on that you were looking for a man on the age range?
He was identified by a number of, there were police officers that were able to recognize his photo once it was revealed, and that helped tremendously.
Chris, can you help us to understand? You said you know he was dressed as a woman during the shooting. Is that based on photographic evidence or what eyewitnesses have said? And also, can you tell us what type of weapon was used?
So it was a high-powered rifle that was used. It was shot high-velocity rounds.
Was it an AR-15?
It could be similar to an AR-15. It was similar to an AR-15. As far as identifying him with the woman's clothes, he was seen on video camera in the woman's clothes. Video camera played a tremendous role in how we were able to identify him both leaving initially and as he left.
Chris, you're saying the dress was a vintage? The same, and when they come up, the same, no.
Different and bought at separate locations.
Did he also have any merchant disguise? Did he have a wig on? Because it was reported that it was a...
I'm not exactly sure what the woman's attire consisted of. Initially, it was reported that this person had long hair, so a wig isn't out of the question. Can you repeat that? It was a local business right in that vicinity. I'm not sure the name of the business. He was able to access the roof through a ladder that's affixed to the side of the building. We'll take 3 more, okay?
What happened with that clothing? Did he dump it somewhere, or did he have it on him?
Have you talked to his parents at all? Have you talked to teachers and people which elementary school that have contacted several times that they were getting with him and the team, the young child growing up? What kind of...
Sure. And one of the things that is important to remember here is the diligence and investigation. We're going to reach out to everybody we possibly can that has information, firsthand information about him, whether that's family members, teachers, friends, whoever it is that has information. But it does take time. It takes time to gather who may know him, who knew him in the past, teachers. That is something that task force investigators are working on. They've interviewed a number of people thus far, but please keep in mind we're 24 hours in. There's a lot of work to be done here. We're not done. I don't want to get into levels of cooperation. No indication the weapons were modified.
One more. Have any children passed away?
No children have passed away. We'll take your last one. I'm not sure what address he gave. I can get back to you on that. All right, we'll be back this afternoon about 3 o'clock. We hopefully have an updated status on charges. He'll remain in custody at this point. Thank you.
Everybody. Thank you.
You've been listening to Chris Cavelli. He is the Deputy Chief of the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force there in Highland Park, Illinois. Some very important details provided in this press conference. Robert Crimo III, age 21, not yet charged, in custody. He, according to Deputy Chief Cavelli, pre-planned his attack. He brought one high-powered rifle, described to be similar to an AR-15. He committed the shooting on the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, then fled the scene in women's clothing to disguise himself, blend in with the crowd, went to his mother's home, obtained a vehicle, was identified by someone who saw him after the shooting, and subsequently taken into custody. According to Deputy Chief Cavelli, there is no indication yet that this was a racially or religiously motivated crime, and there were no contacts with local police about Crimo before this. No alerting that he was a potential threat to this community. Chris Van Cleve is in Highland Park. Chris, you listened to that press conference. You've been there for quite some time. Your impressions?
Well, Major, it's no surprise that there was a plan here because, this was somebody who got on a roof who, based on what witnesses have told us, swept the crowd with gunfire and then seemingly disappeared. So this clearly had some level of premeditation to it. If he's there in a disguise to blend in, he had very distinctive facial and neck tattoos. So the women's clothing to disguise that, to essentially blend into the panic, the chaos, and disappear. The other thing that we learned that we had gotten some heads up on was that video evidence played a big role here. Think back to the Boston Marathon bombing, even January 6th, the role that security cameras play in investigations now. Police were very rapidly able to use that to help identify him. We learned here that there is video evidence of him in the women's clothing leaving the scene here. It is not a surprise that this was premeditated. If we felt that this was a predetermined act but random violence, and that just the targets were random. We learned how he got on the roof. It was a fire escape ladder, which makes sense. That would be an unsecured, potentially, ladder because you need to be able to use it to get out in a fire. So some new information certainly there. One of the questions that I think lingers is if you looked at some of the disturbing messages he was putting on social media, there were warning signs. Did anybody see them?
Did anyone see them? That's one question. We know because Deputy Chief Covelli told us police were not flagged or in any way alerted. Our senior investigative correspondent, Catherine Herridge, is with me at the desk. Catherine, a couple of things. One, the ATF was very helpful tracing this weapon. That expedited the investigation. Also, Deputy Chief Covelli said no motive developed yet. That doesn't mean they don't have an idea or an inkling. And that he is not yet charged, but we probably expect that later on today.
And Major, just to decode what we heard and how federal authorities have been supporting local investigators, there is, number one, and we first reported this here at CBS News yesterday, that the ATF did what's called an emergency trace on the weapon. Based on the news conference, it allowed them to establish the chain of custody for the weapon. We now know that it was Cremo who legally purchased not only the two rifles, but some other pistols that were found at a residence. Number two, when you take that weapon that was seized and you marry it up with the ballistics, the shell casings at the scene, investigators have been able to determine that it was the kill weapon. That's why we're moving so quickly towards the charges. And third, the FBI is really good and surged into this investigation to help them marry up the video and the social media. And what we learned at that news conference is that they've created this mosaic. They've got the security camera video, they've got cell phone video, and that's how they identified the subject. And they're asking for more video to help understand the mapping and the path to that target point. Finally, what I would say is that this is unfortunately sort of the poster child for the kind of case that is so difficult for law enforcement to disrupt. You've got an individual, it appears they acted alone, and there weren't a lot of red flags that were known to outsiders who may have been supporting them, not so in this case. And then also how this violent speech online, which is protected First Amendment speech, then turned that corner to violence in recent weeks.
And Catherine, for a traumatized country and now a traumatized community, Highland Park, Illinois, is it worth noting that there is some similarities in this case, it appears, at least generally, with other mass shootings we have seen recently?
Well, in recent weeks, there's been a warning from the Homeland Security Department about this uptick, this heightened threat environment from domestic violent extremists. And you just have to look at the data sets, Major, to understand the similarities between the suspects, not only in the shooting at the supermarket in Buffalo, New York, also at the elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, and now here in Illinois. You see young men, late teens, early 20s, very isolated, alleged grievances. We need to learn more about what happened in Illinois, but alleged grievances, and then access to high-powered weapons. Those are the data points that connect the dots in these cases.
Our senior investigative correspondent, Catherine Herridge, thank you. CBS News has identified 2 of the 6 victims killed: Nicholas Toledo, grandfather, visiting family, and Jackie